Hour 2 Overdrive continues, powered by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Bryan Hayes, the O-Dog, Jeff O'Neill, Jamie Noodles McLennan, Dan Patrick coming up here in a moment. Day after the Super Bowl, and it's always bittersweet, right? It's a fun day. A lot of people getting together. You watch the whole thing, and then when it comes to an end, you realize the NFL's going to be tucked away for the better part of 7 months. But, we discussed the game a lot. We'll get into it more with Dan. We'll continue it throughout the afternoon. The legacies of Jalen Hurts. Nick Sirianni. Shout out to Nick Sirianni. He's a Super Bowl winning coach.
Dude, they wanted him fired a year ago.
Yeah. Dude, crazy, earlier this year, he was on the hot seat in Philly. They were 2-2 going into the bye. And there were legit reports. Should they fire Sirianni? Will they fire him? This guy wins a Super Bowl with Kenny Pickett taking a knee. That's a flex. And that's what happened last night.
Well, it makes you wonder what the hell happened in Tampa. Like, what was going on? I don't know. Maybe there were some weird things. I mean, I'll tell you, the guy that could just write his own ticket anywhere in football right now is this Howie Roseman. Like,
oh, yeah, the GM of the Eagles.
This guy's name, I've never heard a GM talked about that much leading up to a big game.
Yeah.
Pro series, like World Series, Stanley Cup, Super Bowl. It's like this guy. It was like Patrick Mahomes, Hurts, and Howie Roseman.
And you know what's amazing is, like, you did mention Saquon Barkley, and Barkley was largely a non-factor last night. Like
non-factor.
He really, he put up decent numbers, didn't get into the end zone, was not the reason they won.
Well, you don't think Spag said we're not letting Saquon beat us?
I'm sure that was a part of it. I can guarantee you. I think we all know that. Yet he seemed like a guy that couldn't be stopped. And again, if we went back to before the kickoff, if I told you they'll kind of neutralize him or he won't do much, you definitely wouldn't think they'd win 40-22. You'd just presume that it would be close or the Chiefs would win that game. And there's always celebrities. There's so many different layers to the game, but I only saw Taylor Swift featured once on the screen last night.
Dude, figure it out, bud.
They were booing
what
her.
network had the Super Bowl?
You think it's a Fox thing that they weren't going to show her?
You think that they were going to toss her up there every second minute? No.
Well, also, Kelsey didn't have a good game, so there was no reason to show her, right? But I was surprised by that. Like, in a house filled with young kids who were like, Taylor Swift, Taylor Swift, Taylor Swift. They only showed her once, and she got booed. Like,
I know my daughter.
Big booing, man.
My daughter watched it, dressed up in Kansas City gear and all that for Taylor. That was it. I mean, but you're right. Like, I think a couple different layers to it. Kelsey did nothing. Yes, you could probably look at the Fox side of that. The other guy was in the building, the president.
Yeah.
And, he got a cheer. She got a boo. It was a weird, but, the game stunk. I don't know how to say it.
By the way, how about Ronnie Trump's day yesterday? He teed it up with Tiger Woods in the morning. He flew to the Super Bowl.
I know. It's pretty.
This guy's been in office for 2 weeks, and he's got an 8 a.m. tee time with Tiger, and then he's at the Super Bowl watching the game.
It was crazy. Yeah, you're right.
That is a crazy day when you think about it.
Yeah, like how he squeezed around in. Like if Tiger said, hey, you want to tee it on Sunday? And he's like, well, I have to be in New Orleans for the Super Bowl, but I can tee it at 8. I can tee it at 8.
Like, that's actually like a dream day.
Flex. That's a
you
flex.
get to play golf with Tiger, then go to the Super Bowl. Yes. It's like this guy's, he's taking questions from the media. He's doing interviews, and this guy is, Trump was there, and he seemingly got a pretty big ovation. There were a lot of Eagles fans there. It was one of those nights where I do wonder what this means for the Chiefs. Like, that to me is the question moving forward. What does it mean for Travis Kelce? Because now there's reports. I saw Doogie sent us something from the Daily Mail reporting that Travis Kelce was aware that Taylor had been booed, and he was distraught on the sideline. Like, get out of here. Stop it, dude.
You think he was distraught on the side? He was distraught his team lost the Super Bowl.
Exactly. Yeah, he's won a lot of Super Bowls. He's an all-time great. He's going to the Hall of Fame first ballot.
Yeah. And what did you expect from a bunch of beer-drinking people in Louisiana?
Right. It's unpredictable.
At a Super Bowl. You think it wouldn't be like a pro-Trump, like non-liking Taylor Swift type of thing? That's what was there. So
exactly.
That's all that was.
Exactly. And, we'll see what happens in the future, I guess, with Kelsey and with Swift and the Chiefs in the NFL. We'll see.
What if she just dumped them this week? And it was like, you know what I mean? Like, it just, people have been waiting.
Now?
Well, people have been waiting for a shoe to drop there. Either they get engaged.
I wouldn't be
like
surprised if that ever happened. It would be him that pulled the trigger on it. That's not all it's made out to be. Marion's being with somebody like that.
Well, it's a crazy life. It's a crazy life, and both of them are. It's a crazy, crazy life, and it really is true. Like the impact she's had. You mentioned your daughter, my daughter, the same thing. We were across the street with our neighbors, and they're all like, "Where's Travis Kelce?" That's all it was. With kids the age of like 13 and under, it's like Taylor Swift, Travis Kelce, and the Chiefs. It's incredible,
dude.
What she's done for the sport.
My wife said, "Tell me when Taylor's on the
exactly.
Where
is she? Why isn't she up?"
Yeah,
that was the talking point last night. Why aren't they showing her more? When is she going to be on?
I know, but I was thinking to myself, my wife's actually going to come in the room to look at the TV because Taylor Swift's on it.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Well, exactly.
I got sent a picture of a cookie they had at the house at our Super Bowl house, and it said Taylor's boyfriend's team. Like it wasn't the Chiefs on the cookie. It was Taylor's boyfriend's team. Like that's really what it was. So
we had the full reaction, the outfit, where is she sitting? Like it was just a full thing. Yeah. And that is unique to the Super Bowl experience. But I appreciate it because my kids are they're like, that's who they know. They know Taylor Swift. They don't know, hey, did Vic Fangio send a blitz on that play? Like, my 6-year-old's not asking me that question.
No, not at all.
You know what I mean? Like, hey, what do you make of this from Nick Sirianni? What do you think he should have gone for 2 there? They're not asking those kind of questions.
You know what? And near the end, I don't know how you guys felt. Like, they got a couple, stat padding points at the end. They were nothing, right? Like
my concern, Noodles, because I know it's coming. And I do think, as someone that peddles in the GOAT conversation all the time, and I find it compelling. I like it. I enjoy it. We're all sports guys. This is what we do. We love this kind of stuff.
Like it. We all have to partake in it.
We do partake in it, but I do find it interesting. This is, in sports, the sports world, you compare and contrast. What about this guy? What about that guy? And it's one of those things. I'm sure if you're not a sports fan, you're like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard discussed, but whatever. Yet, the discussion about, what it means for Mahomes, what it means for this, what it means for that, I think it definitely it took a turn last night. I mean, undoubtedly it took a turn last night. But the overreaction to either if he had have won or lost I think is extreme both ways. I guess is what I'm trying to get to. Is if he had have won and Mahomes won and it was a three-peat, it would have been declared, that's it, it's over, Tom Brady sucked, and it's done. Right. And now that he lost and played as poorly as he did, Mahomes, it's like, okay, now it's Brady again. Brady's the GOAT, and we're not talking about it anymore. And it's ridiculous on both ends. Like the guy is still very, very early into his career. Mahomes is incredible. The Chiefs have been great. But it was a bad one last night. The Chiefs got blown out. There's no other way to put it.
Can you think off the top of your head where Tom lost and had a poor game? Like I'm trying to think of in his. How many times did he go to the finals?
Yeah, well, he was in the
Super Bowl.
He was in the Super Bowl 10 times. He won 7, lost 3.
Right,
3
so
losses.
In those 3, did he have a terrible?
Never got blown out.
Patrick,
I don't know. I'd have to go back and look. It's a good question because I don't know if his stats. They were low-scoring games against the Giants. Like they lost 19-17.
I don't think he had. He definitely didn't have that performance that Mahomes had.
No, and that's what you're driving at. I lost my train of thought. You're talking about the padding of the stats. Watching the game, watching Mahomes, you realized he had an awful night. In 10 years, you'll look back and say, well, he threw for 257, 3 touchdowns. His defense didn't show up. Like there's no actual detail or context to a box score when you let it just sit there for overtime. Overtime, you look back on his game and say, Hurts was great. But even Hurts' stats, like not off the charts amazing in terms of what he did with his arm. He ran the ball incredibly well last night, very efficiently last night. But Mahomes, 21 for 32, 257 in the air, 3 touchdowns. Okay. Now the 2 picks were off on the fumble. They were all in his end of the field. One was a pick 6. Like there's just so much more detailed than whatever the box score is going to say. Yet he was padding his stats. The Eagles by the fourth quarter was very clear. They're like, we don't want to get hurt and we want to party and this game's over. So go ahead and march down the field. Xavier Worthy, do your thing. Good for you. Hey, DeAndre Hopkins scored a touchdown in the Super Bowl. Awesome. It was completely irrelevant what happened in the fourth quarter.
Right.
Completely irrelevant.
Yep.
Anyway, do we have Dan here? Yes, we do. All right. We hear him every morning here on TSN Radio, host of the Dan Patrick Show, and he joins us now on the Maple Toyota Hotline. Here's Dan Patrick. How you doing, Dan?
I'm good, guys. Good discussion there about stats. It's weird that if I said, what stats do you have of Dan Marino when he made his only Super Bowl appearance, or Joe Montana's stats, John Elway's stats, I mean, we could use them however we want to use them. I remember Tom Brady didn't have good stats in his one game against the Giants, but as you guys were talking about, he lost close games. That one with the Eagles, he threw for 500 yards. They didn't punt once. So the stats there with Mahomes, I agree with you. I don't know if people remember what he did against Tampa Bay when they got blown out, but it was equally as bad as what you had last night.
Dan, what was your outlook or through your lens of the whole kind of lead up? We were talking all week kind of, I don't know if people are, the Chiefs being there again, that was just too much, or there wasn't much of a build up. That game just kind of happened. How did you obviously it was a blowout, but how did you see the whole week in the build up?
Well, I think we kind of locked in on, well, if Mahomes has the ball, we locked in on a game that was going to be decided by 2 points or less because we bought into the point spread. And you're going, well, if that's the case, you want Mahomes and you want Andy Reid. We gave them credit for having a decided advantage at coach and quarterback. Mm-hmm. Well, it never got anywhere near that. It wasn't close at any point. And I think what people probably failed to realize is the last time Mahomes looked mortal was that Tampa Bay Super Bowl, and that's where Tampa's defensive line dominated his offensive line. Same thing happened last night. They're the MVPs. The fact that you don't blitz, you put pressure on him, and you do it on the biggest stage. I mean, to me, that we can at least have a discussion that performance by that defense is there with the 85 Bears. You can go back to Steelers against the Vikings, really Steelers in any Super Bowl, the Ravens against the Giants. There's a handful of defensive performances, but you can make a case what they did last night, and even with the garbage time touchdowns, that's as good a performance as we've seen in a Super Bowl by a defense.
So, Dan, are you saying that, because we were trying to, I asked the question in the last hour, was it that Mahomes played poorly or Philadelphia played that great, or was it a combination of both that we saw the product there?
Well, I think we've seen Mahomes under pressure, under duress. What I was really shocked at was the play calling. I think Andy Reid's kind of getting a hall pass here. They didn't adjust in the second half. Like, I kept thinking, okay, you're getting roughed up. Now what are you going to do? They never ran the football. And you could say, well, they don't have a great running game. Saquon Barkley ran it 25 times. You have to have the element of we may run the football, and maybe you're going to get a couple of first downs. Maybe you can slow down that pass rush. But they never did that. That was of all the things that probably shocked me the most. And they don't have great runners, but you still have to have that defense think that they might run the football at some point, and maybe you establish a little bit of momentum there, and you keep the Eagles off the field. But if there's no real shock that they're going back to pass, let's go get them, and that's exactly what they did. So that was probably the biggest surprise for me. And Jalen Hurts, it's weird to say he's a great quarterback when they wanted Jalen Hurts to beat them. That'd be like saying, hey, we want Tom Brady to beat us, or we want, Mahomes to beat. It doesn't happen that way. But Jalen Hurts did come up big. That's 2 Super Bowls where he has outperformed Patrick Mahomes. He just has only one win to show for that.
Well, what about the other side of the field with Nick Sirianni, where this guy's whole story is fascinating to me because it seems like they don't really like him in Philly. No one really likes him outside
probably
of
still
Philly.
don't.
Exactly. Like, it feels like, there's a lot of people throughout, football that would say, well, Kyle Shanahan's clearly a better coach. Well, Sirianni's been to 2 Super Bowls, and now he's won one, and he dominated in terms of his scheme and his performance last night. So do you see him turning a corner? Does he become a beloved figure, or is that ship just simply sailed for Nick Sirianni?
He could be Doug Peterson in 2 years.
Yeah.
He could be fired. I mean, they may give him a statue, and then he could be fired. It's Philadelphia. All bets are off with Philadelphia. But he doesn't exude confidence for me. They won. Imagine, he lost his coordinators, or he was going to lose his job, it felt like, in the offseason. You have your quarterback in him who don't sound like they're ever on the same page. And you have a defensive coordinator who got credit for not doing anything last night. Vic Fangio basically said to his defense, "You don't have to. We're not doing anything. We're not blitzing. We're not doing anything." And so it's such a weird coaching staff. Kellen Moore is going to go to the Saints. I don't know. They're going to have everybody back except for a couple of defensive players, and they are built for the future. He's a tricky personality there. He really is.
Yeah.
So, I don't go Landry, Chuck Noll, Bill Belichick, Nick Sirianni. I mean, not yet, at least. But he always seems like he's coaching for his job, even though he's not. But it certainly feels that way.
Yeah, it does. With Dan Patrick, in terms of the GOAT conversation, we have it all the time. Everyone does in different capacities. And I heard you, I think this week or last week, suggesting that if Mahomes three-peats, then it's Jordan, that he's in that conversation with Michael Jordan.
Yes.
How did the GOAT debate go this morning, and what changed based on what we saw last night?
Well, he was going to do something nobody else had done. But the people who have done that, he would be in basketball. Your Woods type. It's something Tom didn't do. So I have to find a category or comparison, and that was my comparison, that he's in with Jordan, that Jordan three-peated twice. But as far as we almost wanted to put him, in the fast lane, like he's already the GOAT if he goes. We had Robert Griffin III on. He said if he three-peats, he's already the GOAT. And I'm going, you're crazy. Mm-hmm. Tom went to 10. He won 7. Like, that's unfathomable. And it still is. And he went a 10-year period where he didn't win the Super Bowl. So, and here's the other thing. Jordan and LeBron never played against each other. You had Mahomes and Brady went head-to-head, and Tom won both of those. So that's where you got to be, slow down on the greatest of all time. Now, does Mahomes play the position better at his peak than Tom at his peak? I believe so. But that doesn't mean he's a better quarterback. It's not even close. He's not even Joe Montana yet. And we forget about Joe Montana. And so but it is a fun conversation, but it's a conversation where people have their strong opinions. They're not going to budge on it. But Mahomes has been embarrassed in the Super Bowl twice. Tom was never embarrassed in the Super Bowl, and he went to 10 of those things. Half of his career, it's like LeBron, half of his career was in the Super Bowl, which is remarkable.
Dan, how did you think Tom was in the booth yesterday? I don't know if you're into critiquing broadcasters, and do you think he does this long? There's a part of me that thinks that this guy just wants to be involved in the game in a different way.
I don't know if you can pass up that money.
I know
I think they gave him an offer that he couldn't refuse.
Yeah.
Because, 10 years for $375 million, a part-time job, while also being a minority owner and everything else that he has at his fingertips. But it's tricky, but because it's Tom, because he's getting paid that, I think it's fair game to critique him. We critique Kirk Herbstreit all the time, or we critique Joe Buckle. I mean, Tom shouldn't be hands off. The problem I have with Tom is Tom needs to broadcast the way he plays. You got to go out there and you got to be aggressive, and you got to be ready to dominate. And he waits for the game to come to him. He waits to almost be asked to say something. And that's where I think he falls short. I want Tom Brady to tell me what's happening before it happens. I don't really care what he says after the fact. It doesn't matter. That's where Romo makes a lot of mistakes, but Romo, it feels like, is playing the game. Like he's quarterbacking. I don't get that feeling with Tom. Collinsworth feels like he's playing the game. Herbstreit, Troy Aikman, they're letting you think what they would be thinking in that moment, and Tom doesn't do that. He needs to be far more aggressive and almost try to dictate. That's the genius of Tom Brady. You would think he'd go to the line of scrimmage and go, you know what I'm going to do right here? You know what I would be thinking? See that guy right there? Watch him. That's what I would want from Tom. You don't get that.
Yeah, he had a moment like that. I can't remember which game it was. One of the playoff games where there was, I think maybe it was the Detroit game, where there was 12 men on the field and he's yelling, timeout, timeout.
Yeah.
You gotta call. And that was him in the pocket saying, like, I can see this. There's a mistake. Someone's done something here. And it was a great call. It was a great call because he was in the moment. To your point, he didn't wait for the flag and then say, oh, what happened there? He was in it, and he was informing, and I was watching it, and I'm like, man, he was right. They should have burned a timeout.
For 2 years, Romo predicted plays, and everyone was goo gaga over it, and then it just kind of fizzled out, did it not?
Well, yeah, I mean, it was a bit over the top with Romo, but it was new and unique, and yet, Tony's he's not going anywhere, as you know, Dan. I mean, it's Romo and it's Brady. And I think Aikman's not going anywhere. I don't think Collinsworth's going anywhere. I think those are the four big color guys for the next decade, more than likely.
Yeah, I don't know if Tom continues to do it, but he's got to stop trying to be perfect. And how he says something, how he looks when he's it's too. You're trying too hard to. It's almost like an artist. I can paint an unbelievable painting. Well, if you see all the junk around me, I got paint all over me, there's paint on the floor, brushes all over the place. It's a mess. But what I painted is what's great. He needs to get messy. The tie needs to be, loosened up. He needs to have the jacket off. I don't care if you have a $600,000 watch on. Just do the game.
Yeah.
Do the game. Get aggressive. Go after it. This is a guy who ran out every game and would yell, let's F go, at the top of his lungs. That's what he needs to do. Go after these games. Now, granted, if you look at the games that he did this year, he didn't have he started out with Dallas and Cleveland. He had bad games. And, it's hard to be a great broadcaster in a bad game, unless you're just telling stories. But I need Tom to be going after it. But I don't. And the analogy that I always use is these guys had to be spoken to. They rarely said something to you. You had to ask them a question. They're waiting for you to ask him a question. He goes to a press conference trying not to say something. Now you have to say something. I mean, that's an interesting dichotomy of, who you were to what you need to be, and they're completely opposite.
We'll get you out of here on a couple of stories we found interesting that broke over the weekend. Basically, Super Bowl news dumps. One of them was an injury-related news. The other one was about what a team's going to do. Which one is more significant in your opinion? Which Super Bowl news dump more significant? Aaron Rodgers being told you're out in New York, the Jets are cutting bait and they're leaving, or this Anthony Davis is injured for at least a month story?
Well, he got hurt on Sunday, and he played great. Mm-hmm. I would say, the Aaron Rodgers, I'm not surprised at either one of those stories. If you said, Anthony Davis played well and he got hurt, I go, okay.
Yeah.
And if you would have said, hey, the Jets aren't bringing back Aaron Rodgers, I'd go, okay. So neither one of those. Now, there have been the news dump of all news dumps was when the Cowboys hired Brian Schottenheimer. That was a Friday evening when this is a team that waited until that Sunday of the Cowboys season opener to announce Dak Prescott had signed a new contract. That's when you want somebody to notice. When you're hiring a coach on Friday night, that's when you go, I hope nobody notices, but we're going to hire our guy. So that, to me, that's the ultimate news dump.
Yeah, that was a good one. That was a good one by Jerry and the boys down there in Dallas. Well, they're struggling. Listen, if you're in Dallas right now, you're just letting the Mavs do what they're doing, right? You let them take over everything. And tonight, Luke is playing. Any prediction? I think he's going for 40-plus tonight. I'll bet you just destroys Utah. What do you think Luke is going to bring to the table?
Oh, I have no idea how, is LeBron playing? Austin Reeves just went for 45. Mm-hmm. So for the Lakers. But I don't know. He might showcase his game. If I was going to a new team, I would not want to take over the game. I would want to play nice with my teammates. I would, because he is a really good passer, but I would probably want to show my all-around game and maybe play some defense. That would be
nice.
Something new.
That would
be like,
a change.
Damn, Lucas playing defense there. Yeah.
Okay.
I think he'll probably be, it might be a triple-double, but it might be like 22, 12, and 10 or something.
And it is Utah he's playing tonight. I think that does have to be
true.
considered.
That is true.
He is Dan Patrick. You hear him every morning right here on TSN Radio. It's always great to catch up with you, Dan. I know it's a busy time of year, so thank you for doing this, and we'll do it again down the road.
Great to hear from you again, guys. Thank you.
You got it, Dan Patrick. It's going to be an interesting time now with the NFL winding down. You got pitchers and catchers reporting in a couple of days, right? So baseball starts swinging up. The NBA and the NHL really starts to swing up once you get through the next couple of weeks. And the Masters, you see all the commercials for the Masters during the Super Bowl. There's a lot of them sprinkled in there.
A lot of Speaking of Brady, Jamie, like you do that for a living, call games. Do you think that because my answer to it, or my assessment of it, is no. I think what you saw from Tom Brady this year will pretty much be the same thing next year.
Yeah,
could you see him changing drastically?
I think there's a progression, and I really loved what Dan said about going at it. They might have some candid conversations with him in the offseason and go, here's some games we liked. Here's some you can actually do air checks, right? And if he's a guy who was, my understanding, a very hard-working professional, he'll want to get better, but it comes back to what you guys were talking about earlier, his personality. He's trying to joke around. He's not a funny guy. That's not what you expect out of him, right? You expect analysis. Tony Romo did shock the world. I couldn't wait to hear what he had to say because he was in the game, living it. If Brady could somehow channel some of that, I think he'll be fine. He'll grow and he'll get better, but I don't know what his ceiling is. I don't see him as the all-time greatest broadcaster just because he was the all-time greatest quarterback.
I was thinking, I don't think he could bring in, because I loved when John Madden would, circle the dirt and grass stuck in a guy's helmet. I don't see Tom, A, being interested in that, or B, almost being good at detailing that. You know what I mean? He has got to find out what works for him. Because I thought Madden was fascinating. He'd be he'd circle a coach's belt buckle and be look at that coach, his belly's hanging over. He would do some weird stuff that was very unique, but that worked for him.
Yeah, it's interesting when you think of color commentary and football. It's a blue collar kind of gritty sport, and I think you look back on the greats, and Madden is at the front of the line. It does seem like he's just kind of a disheveled mess that loves football. And that's kind of what Romo was too. He'd come in, he didn't shave. He looks like his tie's not done up ready, and he's jacked and he's on the edge of his seat. Brady looks like he's about to walk down a runway. Always. The hair is perfect. The suit is so tight and on.
But that's how the guy looks. He's not going to just start being a pig.
But that's the point. I'm not asking him to be that. I'm saying it doesn't look comfortable. It looks overly thought out and prepared. And that's what
got to be spontaneous. It's live sports.
There's something about the colored guy. He's just there, and he's there because the game's on. Not because he's working. If that makes sense.
Nope.
That's
100%.
That's how it feels.
And keep in mind, Gordon Miller and we talk about this all the time. You're in the entertainment business.
Yeah.
Somebody is sitting on the couch and wants to hear what you have to say, but you have to be likable. You have to deliver it in a way where people, you're including them. You're including them. And with Brady, he's stiff. Everything about Brady is stiff and buttoned up. And, we're looking at it. You mentioned Madden is, he's got pizza stains. Maybe he's come out of his bus because he's driven there in a bus because he doesn't like to fly. And Romo's probably golfed because he's a big golfer. Brady, he'll be buttoned up, but that's just him in a nutshell.
Well, that's it. That's who he is. That's what he is. And like you look at the Manning brothers, like they look and feel like the Manning brothers too, and it works. And
they're just a couple Billy Bobs, like hillbillies, and they're not going to change. And that's the way they talk about football. And they're not moving away from the sweater vest zip up. That's just what they do.
Well, that's the thing. Like that's what Brady's a guy. He's a Bay Area Michigan grad that was the best and married to supermodels. That's his life. That's who he is. Yeah, that's what he is. And he's going to look and feel like $1 million, and he's going to sound that way and all that. The other guys are, Romo was a practice squad guy that no one knew him in college, and then he plays and. The Mannings are from Louisiana, and they got a different vibe, and they grew up in a football family, and, everyone's got their own little thing going. And Brady does, too. He is uniquely Tom Brady, but it's just will it translate over time to a connection with the audience? That's always going to be the question. Okay. And you have to be authentic. I mean, that is media in a nutshell. I think it's politics. I think it's life in a nutshell. You have to be authentic. You have to feel like you're actually portraying who you are. Of course, it's with some makeup on, and it's a little bit more polished, and it's professionalism too. But you got to show that authenticity. All right, Chris Johnston, in about a half an hour, first day of the Four Nations, all the teams coming together, all the practices, all the different line combinations. We'll get into that and more still to come. Overdrive continues, TSN 1050 and on TSN 4. All right, something to chew on still to come. We've got Chris Johnston in about a half an hour. This Four Nations face-off is an NHL event. Obviously, the NHL pretty ecstatic that they have the rights to it. It is their event, and the reason I bring that up is I just saw the Maple Leafs posting on Instagram different pictures of Marner and Nylander and Matthews, and you probably wouldn't get that at the Olympic Games, right? The IOC is always kind of tight about that, what you can use, what you can't use. So you're going to get a lot of content from the individual teams about their individual players, which is going to be pretty unique.
Do you think
that'd be cool?
Do you think somebody from the Leafs would be sent there to take pics?
I would guess that they would have a
100%.
social media member there for sure to represent the team and to make sure that their players are promoted and the event is promoted, right? They're all in on this. The league wants it to pop and wants it to work. They created this thing.
What was up with Finland? They had 10 guys out there. Did this just sneak up on them, the tournament, or
They've had a lot of injuries.
Man,
they've had injuries. But yes.
So Ottawa has a defenseman that got called up for the minors who's played 16 games in the NHL. That Matt Palo,
I think he's good. I like him.
He's a nice player. Yeah,
10 players on the ice. I'm like, this shouldn't have snuck up on you guys. This has been announced for a while.
Well, how many Finnish players are in the NHL? Is it one of those scenarios where you got to because they go to the Olympics, they usually have someone on the fourth line that plays in the KHL or plays in the Finnish Elite League or
you're right.
Generally, that's the case.
They are taking all NHL players, and then they are.
Well, they got a game tomorrow night, don't they?
Canada plays
Wednesday,
Sweden on Wednesday.
Wednesday, yeah.
And is tomorrow night USA Finland? Yeah,
possibly.
It might be.
Yeah, so
I think that might be on Thursday. I think it goes Wednesday, Thursday, 2 games on Saturday, 2 games on Monday, and then the following Thursday is the final in Boston. But they're in Montreal for the rest of the week. Saturday will be really cool. There's a 1 o'clock game and an 8 o'clock game on Saturday night at the Bell Center. It's Canada versus USA. At the Bell Center, it's going to be pretty electric. Like it has a real possible.
You would think, man.
I hope so. I mean, the reason I'm laughing is because I saw a clip earlier on Marchand being like, are they rooting for me? Are they not going to root for me? Like, what's going to happen to Habs fans? Mitch Marner. Mitch Marner is a Leaf, and obviously, I'm sure they'll be rooting for Canada and the Canadian players.
Of course they'll be rooting for Canada. What I was wondering is the ticket. I don't think the tickets have been flying off the shelves. Apparently they're outrageous. I don't know. That'll be interesting.
Yeah.
Is it sold out? I would imagine it's sold out.
Guess we'll find out. That's the question. They're sneaking in the Sweden-Finland game on the Saturday afternoon. Is that sold out? Every Canada game will be. I would think the American team probably will be well represented. Are people going to come up and watch? Probably. They probably do pretty decently.
Doesn't Canada play one game at 1 o'clock? Isn't there? I thought there was a 1 o'clock.
If they do, it's probably the Monday game. I'd have to look that up, but they do. They
February 17th, 1 p.m. Eastern, Canada, Finland.
Yeah, that one's in Boston. So they're in Montreal for the first two, and then they're in Boston for both games on. And obviously the Americans are going to play primetime in Boston.
Right.
So that's, the way they set it up. But, yeah, the lines are out, and I found it interesting that McKinnon's on the wing. Nathan MacKinnon is not playing up the middle of the ice as of day one. John Cooper's got him on a line with Sidney Crosby and Mark Stone on the other side. So that's interesting that McDavid and McKinnon, like McKinnon's been, him and Draisaitl, the two best players in the league this year, I would argue, in terms of forwards.
Yeah.
Right.
And
but you got a centerman there in McKinnon who can take the draw. Like I did this when I played with Ronnie Francis a lot. I took draws on the right side of the ice, assumed center ice responsibilities, and you just kind of – these guys are the smartest, best players in the world.
Right.
Obviously, they're going to have to look to see if McKinnon gets the puck in the right spots because his strength, which is so dangerous, is just cruising through the middle of the ice.
Yeah.
At warp speed, and if he ain't doing it, you got to move him back to the middle and put Sid on left wing or something.
So, one quick question: why is Seth Jarvis in red there on the left?
He's sick today or something.
Konechny was sick. Konechny wasn't playing.
Konechny was sick.
So I don't.
They put Jarvis in. That's Konechny's spot.
That's
then? Is that
I guess what they're
thinking?
presuming. I don't know if Joe from the Bridge took that upon himself.
I think he's just making things up. That's where I was like, he flashed that in the 4 o'clock hour. I'm like, why is Seth Jarvis the only guy in red there? And I think Joe from the Bridge has got his own lineup, and he's
Doogie,
like,
do you have an explanation for why Joe from the Bridge did that? Because we're wondering here.
Like
Doogie's got no idea. I don't know. I don't have the answer for you. I mean, the only thing is that Konechny didn't skate today. So is he the 13th forward or is he going in there? Because I think it was presumed, which is dangerous, that Seth Jarvis would be the 13th forward. So he's a placeholder, and maybe that's Konechny that's going to be on that line.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
If that's – and maybe Cooper said that. I didn't hear him say post-game that that's what happened. I'm not sure. Or post-practice today. But what I find interesting about these lines is a couple of different things. One, if McKinnon's going to play on the wing, I want to see him play with McDavid. Like, I know he wants to play with Sid. He said that on our show. We interviewed him last year about playing Four Nations and what do you dream of? And he said, I dream of playing with Sid. Like, he said that to us. He wanted to play with Sid. So this could be Cooper throwing him a bone, saying, all right, you want to play with Sid? We'll play with Sid. There's no downside to that. But if he's going to play on the wing, McKinnon, at some point I need to see him play with McDavid. I need to see McDavid and McKinnon on the ice at the same time.
Dude, a 4-on-4 with Makar on the back end and Morrissey or something, and just I want to see it.
I want to see what it looks like. I have to see that. And John Cooper is the head coach. He's got Point up the middle of the ice, Sorelli up the middle of the ice, making sure his guys are, playing where they're supposed to play and playing comfortably.
Well, they're pretty damn good players. They're not floaters.
I hear you, but
that's not like Point.
Should Point be up the middle over McKinnon, though? I guess is what I'm asking.
You don't think they would have went Nathan MacKinnon, Hayes, and said, "What do you think about this?" Like,
I don't know. Would they?
John Cooper. It's Nathan MacKinnon, and he would have said, "What do you think about playing on the right side with Sid?" Yeah. And he would have said, I'd prefer to – if he didn't want to do it, he would have said, I'd prefer to be in the middle.
I would guess –
Do you want my opinion?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was shocked that Sid's at center ice. I'll be honest. Like, I thought Sid would be a wing. They put McKinnon in the middle and have Sid on the wing because McKinnon's the better centerman right now, is he not?
Yeah, he is. And to O's point, maybe it's going to be a combo thing where the draws or whatever. But if you're going to allow for that level of respect to McKinnon, like, where do you want to play? You don't think they do that to Sid? Like, do you think they just tell him to stuff it and say you're playing the wing because I've decided you're playing the wing?
Well, yeah, you're right. Like, here's another question. What's wrong with Sid? Like, he didn't play his last couple games.
You got an attitude you got an attitude before puck drop.
Who does? I don't have any attitude.
No, he's all worked up about it.
I'm asking the questions that Canadians are asking. I'm representing Joe Fan throughout the country.
But they left it up to Sid to bail out or to play.
Yeah.
Right? Because he's not 100%. Like, Quinn Hughes bailed, and Sid said, this is my Stanley Cup. My team's not making it, so I'm going to play in this tournament.
But the easier assignment, if you're banged up and you're just wheeling into the tournament a little dinged up, is playing the wing. But
that's a good point too. You know that might end up happening. Maybe they shelter him. Maybe he doesn't. Maybe he's not at 100% as the tournament goes on. Right. I don't know. I think the answer, like you proposed that question, going to Nathan MacKinnon, I think he'd give the good old Canadian boy answer and say, "I'll play anywhere." Yeah, whatever you need from me.
Man. That guy's crazy, man. He doesn't let anybody eat like organic noodles for pregame meal. He's crazy. So he would say, "I'm playing center."
He would run the show over John Cooper. That's what you're telling
me.
That
is not true. John Cooper's the coach, but he would have had a phone call or a text message. What do you think about this? And anybody of all those players, Nathan MacKinnon would have said, I'm better served to play center ice.
Well, I would think he would feel that way, period, because of how great – the guy's the reigning Hart Trophy winner playing center, right? This isn't some combo guard that goes back and forth. Guy plays up the middle of the ice exclusively in Colorado. But it could be a compromise where it's like if you want to play with Sid, this is what has to happen. You know, you want to play with Sid so badly, sure, we could try to make that work, but we're not going to ask him to step out of his comfort zone. He's not going to play the wing for you because this guy's been in the league he's been the face of our program for 20 years, and he's a centerman, and he might take offense to that. I don't know. So we're not going to move him. So you want to play with Sid, you're going to play on the right wing. I don't know.
I think they left it up to MacKinnon. MacKinnon deferred to his idol and best buddy Sid and goes, leave him in the middle. I'll play on the wing.
You don't think those two have drank 100 beers on the dock saying, what about this? What about that?
Sure.
And this is the final conclusion.
Okay.
But when I first envision this, I always think of top two centermen, and I think of combinations. It's like, Kopitar coming over the boards, and then Jeff Carter, like Crosby, and then Malkin. And when you think of McDavid and then MacKinnon, that's some scary stuff.
It's like really scary.
Yeah.
Really scary.
He's still going to be doing – who knows how it all plays out. The only way you're going to find out is watching one game. And if McKinnon's not a factor as much, you'd be like, why the hell is he playing right wing?
Right.
And I'm coming back to what you said, He might take draws on the right side. Sid takes draws on the left, and these guys
they're just playing hockey. It's not really about positioning.
Yeah, and they've skated together forever, so they probably have chemistry already. Like that's the crazy.
That's what you're banking on, I'm sure.
Yeah,
and then Mark Stone, is basically a jack of all trades. You're going to throw him out there and just say, go and do what you always do, and these guys are going to be able to play off of it. Yeah. So, we'll see. And it can change during the game. It can change after it. But I'm sure they've put a lot of work into it. Hockey Canada and John Cooper, they've been kind of trying to figure out what they're going to do and how they're going to play it out, for months, if not years. And this is the first look we saw today. Chris Johnston on this and more still to come. We'll get into the Leaf game. We still haven't touched on it from Saturday night. The road trip completed. They go 3-1 on the road. Where they sit in the standings, they're off for 2 weeks. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app.
We've been talking about the four nations and the greats that have come together there. If you want to see a transaction that there's no guarantees in the big leagues, Jesse Puljujarvi has signed a PTO with the Charlotte Checkers. Like, that is a crazy, crazy transaction. Mm-hmm. What was that, dude? Third overall or something?
Fourth overall.
Fourth overall.
Yep. And he
played him too early. He played too early. They brought him over. I don't think they developed him properly. And you know what? The player has to own that too. He didn't develop I don't know what the hell that guy was as a player. He had a good shot. Big, strong guy, not physical. I don't know if he worked on his speed and anything. It didn't work out in Edmonton for him, and then Kyle brought him in.
It just didn't work out. Period.
No, it's pretty wild to see a European player do this too.
I would have figured they're ninja dust playing in Europe, man.
See ya. I'm going to Europe. I'll play there for the next 15 years. A PTO in the American League. I didn't know they had those.
Oh yeah, they had them.
I didn't know they had so you could get cut from the PTO in the American League.
released from it.
Can you imagine calling up the agent? Like, get me a PTO in Charlotte with the Checkers.
Yeah.
We'll see how that rips.
Like, maybe if you love the golf or something, like, keep me in the Carolinas,
do you think he actually called his agent and said,
Oh.
I'm joining Quail Hollow. Can you...
No.
That would be a reason
I've joined Quail Hollow.
Yeah.
Get me a PTO.
I'm teeing off with Mac Hughes tomorrow at Quail Hollow.
And your buddy with the mustache, the announcer.
Oh,
He's a
yeah.
member.
That's
Johnson
right.
Wagner.
Johnson Wagner
Yeah.
is a member at Quail Hollow.
Yeah. I'm teeing it with Wagner and Mackenzie Hughes at noon. I'm going to be late for practice.
Yeah. It's a great course. It'd be a lot worse excuses or explanations I could think of.
It's true.
But, yeah, I mean, tough one again in the golf world. Like, we'll get into this as we go on here. But, like, Thomas Dietrich, good for him. Unbelievable tournament. But the guy ran away with it. It was never really close. And then Tiger is out of the Genesis, right? His mom passed away, and he referenced that and just said he can't do it, can't play. So he's not even going to be there. It's his tournament. So they're going to Torrey Pines. He missed out on Riviera because of the fires. And now Tiger's not even playing. So it gets worse and worse for the PGA.
It's just so weird, though. It's like he's not playing in the Genesis. What the hell's he doing playing with Trump yesterday morning?
I found that peculiar myself.
It's like, maybe, Ronnie, I'm a little bit...
Yeah.
I'm out of sorts. I can't make it today.
752. I can make that. I can make that. Can't play a Tory, but can make the tee. Him and Trump on the range working on fades.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
P.S. Can I come to the Super Bowl with you?
All right, final hour coming up. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app.